Okay, we're good. So, hey guys, yeah, this is Nishant again. It's been a while, but we're here with MaryJessie. Do you want to, I guess, like give yourself an intro?
Yeah, sure. I guess I could do like my general who is Mary as a person intro and then also like what's my music intro.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so yeah, my name's Mary. I'm a senior engineering major at Harvey Mudd College. A little bit about me outside of the realm of music. I'm the founder of San Jose Strong, which is a really cool grassroots organization to reinvent San Jose formed by the community. I'm really passionate about like city infrastructure and empowering our cities, both from a social community perspective and from a structural smart city tech design perspective. I'm also a fantasy author, so I'm just obsessed with all things world building. I love to run, I love to jump rope. I like teaching STEM and teaching coding and stuff to middle and high schoolers. And then, yeah, so that's just a little bit about like me. I love listening to music and reading books and podcasts. Outside of that, the main thing that I'm here to talk about is my music. I consider myself like a neo soul lo-fi artist. I'm a singer songwriter, and I do some kind of co-production work. I also used to be like in like classical orchestras and stuff as a violist, but I'm just a big music head and I love all things music. So it was cool when I found out that I could sing, which is a story in and of itself. And I was like, okay, cool, now I get to do this.
Yeah,
But yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
awesome. You said you're like super into music, obviously. Who are like some of your favorite artists now, or like in the past, like
Yeah.
some artists that influenced you?
Oh wow. Yeah. There's so many. I hope I'm still here. Can
Yeah,
you
yeah,
still
yeah,
see
yeah.
me? Okay, cool. Um, let's see. So I'm a big fan of the Selection Collective. For anyone who's like anyone who's listening to this slash you who's unfamiliar with Selection, they're like a record label and collective niche and radio show based out of LA that was founded in 2011. I got tapped into their work like 2012, 2013. Um, I like bet there's an artist that you like that's like like affiliated or from Selection. Some artists like I personally am a big fan of that are like have heavy ties with Selection. Are like Masengo, Goldlink, Raven Lene, Smino, Anderson Pack, like all of them are
Oh
like
shit.
in link with Selection.
Yeah.
And that's like how I got like put on to a lot of their music like in 2013, like 2014, like Monte Booker, like all those cool like producers like that, like just like through Selection. And so that's how I get like plugged in a lot. Um, and yeah, that already gives you a bit of a taste into some of the stuff that I like.
Yeah.
Recently today, I was listening to Najee, and I was like, oh, he like influences my lyrics a lot. And then I was listening to IMDb, and I was like, oh my gosh, like she influences like my flow. And I was just thinking a little bit about that, more on just like a roots perspective. Like my dad's a big music head, and like in his past life he was in like audio engineering and stuff and like worked with some like record labels and things before I was born. And you know, like he's a big fan of like Steely Dan and like lots of like cool jazz music, lots of like really like progressive house. So like um there's this artist called Cloud, and their album Adventure is one of the coolest albums like ever. And so I definitely recommend listening to it. That's a big influence. And like, yeah, lots of Brazilian music, lots of world music. But yeah, and so those are kind of some quick snapshots of where I get my
Yeah.
influence from. Recently, a big influence just this year has been Cash Page. I love Cash Page. And so that's my 2020 favorite would be Cash Page.
Who is Cat? Is it a band? Is it a? Sorry, I feel
Oh
like I'm
yeah,
so like
she's
out
a
of the touch right now. Like,
no, you're so good. Cash Page, she's an up and coming like R&B artist,
um,
and I first found her late 2019 for one of her songs. I'm trying to remember the name. Oh my gosh. But it's off of her like Late Night Convos EP. She like got big for her song Love Songs because I think it like blew up on TikTok or something. But she really kept the wave going. And like on her recent album, she's like collabed with like Don Toliver. She was on like Travis Scott's Euphoria song,
okay.
and had like a recent collab with like Alicia Keys. So she's like starting to like really, she's like 19.
Just
Like I
popping
think she
off.
like just turned, yeah, she like is just like starting to soar. And so I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm like so glad that I caught it like right as it started. So now I just get to be a part of the ride. The ride
Yeah.
up is always super fun. Like whenever you're like right there, you're like, oh cool. You don't even
No,
have to wait.
I
You're
I
you're
definitely feel
here.
that. Yeah, like being able to like I guess invest your time or like your feelings into an artist and seeing them succeed is like a pretty good feeling, I would say as well.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I would say that like when I listen to your music, I feel like it's like a vibe. Is how I could most describe it. Like I would say it's not like other music that I listen to. Like I don't know. I feel like the best way to anyone who hasn't listened to Mary Jess's music is it's like it's like a sphere of just like chill is like how I would best describe it. One question I have is like how because I think what's really cool is like your voice works so well with like the production, and
Yeah.
I think that's what like that what's the word like match is like what really
Yeah.
makes it. Could you talk about like what it's like working with like producers and like coming up with um coming up with like the beats and like
Yeah.
I have some I went through Genius, so I have some like background already, but yeah, could you say
Oh, okay. One, first off, like shout out to you for like going through the Genius, because it's like I feel like it's one of the more like niche things in my like music. Like I feel like not everybody's like gonna say, okay, I'm gonna click on go find her on Genius. But yeah, I like I'm glad you did that because I like love annotating, as you probably have noticed in
that?
the Genius.
You're good. You get
Um,
some good annotations.
but yeah, no, that's like I'm super excited to talk about that because um I'd say there's two big components to like how production style works. One, I'll start with like the shorter one, which is like my pretty much like the only platform I use, like really am involved in, and I'm like really deep into SoundCloud. Um, and I love like finding like really underground artists
Wait,
and
I'm
like
sorry. You
I've
actually cut off for like a couple
oh
seconds.
no, am I back?
No, yeah, you just slowed down and then like it was just like a bit of
Yeah.
a cut off. Could you start again? Possible?
Yes, I can 100% start again. Also, let me check really quickly to make sure how much battery life I have on my phone. I was so ill prepared. Give me
No.
one quick
Yeah.
second to grab this charger in this new place. Okay, here now. Am I okay?
Yeah, I
Can you
think
hear me?
good.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool. Okay, cool. Great. Then I will continue to talk. Let's see if
yeah,
you can see me. I will sit here with this charger. But yeah, so I'm like super deep into SoundCloud. That's like the main platform that I use, like almost pretty exclusively.
yeah.
Um, and I've been on SoundCloud, yeah, since like 2012 and like 2012, 2013. And so like SoundCloud works really well when you really use it. So like how that like the algorithms work and like the uploads and like if you follow a lot of people on SoundCloud, you get a lot of their reposts. You can find a lot of really cool content. And so like because of just like how niche I am into SoundCloud, I find a lot of like really cool producers who are like really underground. Like it'll be like they'll have like 30 followers on their SoundCloud and like, you know, a dozen plays, but like the shit's fire. Or people who are like kind of starting to pop off a bit more, but like haven't quite popped off yet. And I'm like, yo, like
Yeah.
this has direction. And so I like do a lot of like I'll comment and be like, oh, this is really heat, or I'll DM like producers and be like, hey, like I really love your music, I really love your sound. Like, would you want to collab sometimes? Or if people message me, like I'm pretty active to respond and be like, oh, like let's cook something up. I'd say some good examples are my song Bittersweet, and on the album Sofa Interlude, were produced by Ukuku, who I originally found, or he found me. I found him. He found, and he was one of my like top 10 listeners in like 2018. And I do this thing like on New Year's where I like message the top 15, like top 20 listeners who aren't like listening to my music. Like, thank you, so like go team. And
Yeah.
then he was like, hey, would you want to like collab? And I was like, yeah, like let's run it. And then that's how like Bittersweet came about. And
Got you.
another example is my song Autumn Breeze. That started because I really liked a producer. Like washing things. I really like this producer's like music. He goes by Custodian. And I like DM'd him and was like, hey, would you want to collab? And he was like, yeah, like I'd be down. Give me like a sentence. And I gave him this like, oh, like drinking like warm like coffee like on a nice autumn day. Like that's this vibe. And then he's like, okay,
Yeah.
word. And he came up with this beat, and then I wrote this song to it, but we didn't quite feel like it quite like clicked. And then I started releasing more songs, and he was like, okay, wait, now that I have a better sense of your sound, like let me like redo this beat. And then we like redid it and like fine-tuned it, and I like pieced together different pieces of the original song until we like had Autumn Breeze. So there's like a good amount of that, or like I'll be like, hey, like I want this like fine-tuned, I want this change, like I want to add like a beat here, like remove a snare there. So that's kind of like how coordination works with like SoundCloud producers that I get connected with. You know, there is some instances where like my song Like the Moon on my album, like I didn't make any edits to the beat, but like I had found that producer and was like, I like your sound and I think I fit well with your sound. And then he was like, oh, here are some beats that I have that I think would work with your sound. And that's how like that one came about. But the other big like helm of the production is kind of just like the core group of people at the Claremont colleges that I work with, which ties a lot into how I got into making music. So I like was taking like this Afro-Cuban drumming class my freshman spring, and there was a chorus section in the drumming class, and the professor was like, hey, you know, like you have a pretty good like voice. Like, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Like didn't put that together. And now one of my good friends who mixed and mastered my EP and my album and has like several tracks that he's produced that are of my work, Taheeb, he was like, yo, like you should like make music, like let's like hang out, like let's like do jam sessions. And then
Yeah.
we like starting out. Now he's one of like my good friends. And we're like, okay, cool. And so, you know, we started to work together and like cook things up. And like that's like person number one. And then the second big person is Encore. He was a year above me at Mud. And we met at like our orientation, like he was one of my OA leaders, like my orientation adventure leaders. And when we both were in like the same like dorm, Mud has a pretty intensive dorm culture. So like he had some beats and like I was kind of making some music, and he like shared me some of the beats he was working with, and I was like, yo, like we should just like fuck around and make an EP. And that's like how Welcome to September came about. Was like summer 2019. I was at this like engineering consulting firm in Pasadena, and like he just graduated and was working at like an audio engineering firm in LA. And so I just like commute from like Pasadena to LA after work, and then like just cook stuff up in like his like makeshift studio in his apartment. And like that's like how Welcome to September came to be. And I also like recorded like everything for the album, almost everything, like except for like a few of the songs at his place. We did lots of like COVID precautions, but like, you know, when I was in South Pasadena with my partner, I'd like go over to his spot and record. And so like it was cool to like have, and then like Encore works with Taheef now, like they'll like work together, and so we'll all just kind of like get on like a Zoom call and like work things out, or like work with like other like artists at the Claremont College. So like the song Just Wanna Dance, like how that started was like my friend, and he's a producer, Samir, like was trying to make like a beat a day over the summer. And so one of the beats he made I like really liked, and I was like, oh, this is heat. And so I was walking around and I was like, like, oh, and he's like, I just want people to dance to this. And I was like, all I want to do is like, all I want to do is dance. And I was just like, ooh. And then like, and then, you know, he sent a sample to Taheeb, and then Taheeb like makes it into like a full-on like really great production. And then, you know, me, Tahib, Encore, and Samir all get on a Zoom and we're like, okay, this should change, that should change. Okay, cool. Like, here's how we want to make this sound. And then I'm like, okay, this is like how I want to vibe with it. And so that's sort of like how I get to like work with the producers. It's primarily connections on SoundCloud or connections from college.
Yeah.
And so I'm like pretty blessed to like have met just like really good producers and people can like master and mix my projects really well.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's like where that comes from. But I'm definitely like pretty involved in the production style, which I think like just comes from my like background in music. And that like helps me as a singer songwriter really get to say like, this is what's gonna sound good for my vibe. And I can like give, sometimes I don't have like all the technical language, so I'll be like, it needs more of fill in the blank vibe, and
Yeah.
then we
Yeah.
have to try to communicate it. But it gets across, and then we get some cool tunes. So it's been pretty hype.
That's awesome. So how is like like working with like these producers changed since like COVID and stuff? Like, has
Yeah.
it changed much or?
Yeah, well, I mean, most of us aren't in the same place anymore, so it's a lot like at Mud, like it'd be able to, like we'd all go to like Tahiv's room and like jam out. Like I remember actually beginning of 2020, because I was going abroad, but I visited like Claremont before going abroad,
Yeah.
and I just got to like just like 5 or 6 other people, like we all just like went to Tahiv's and like had a jam session.
Yeah.
And so like some of that like rawness of it, like if you're able to meet with someone, you can only like meet with like one person. Like I've only like the only person I've met in person for music was Encore for like recording the album. But I think because a lot of my connections are on SoundCloud, which is like almost pretty has always been remote. Like a Cuckoo who I mentioned, like he's from Peru, so like there's like no way that we also have like a language barrier, so we're both like trying, like he tries to like use English and then I try to use Spanish, and we like try to like translate and like
Yeah.
alternate which language who gets to speak their native tongue first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that because of that I had like good experiences in being remote before COVID. And I also like tend to record in a lot of makeshift places as it is anyways.
Yeah.
Like I record in like dorm rooms and like, you know, wherever I'm like, ooh, this sounds like it could sound nice. So I think my like style like facilitated it. But you know, COVID also has just kind of sucked because you can't do like live in-person shows. Like I've done a lot of like remote Zoom shows and stuff, and like I had a remote listening party for my album release. But it's like so much different than just like getting to like put on a really lit show. Like I was, as I mentioned, I went abroad before COVID hit, and so I spent like 5 to 6 weeks in New Zealand before I had to come back.
Oh, so
And
your abroad got cut off? Is that?
yeah,
No.
yeah.
That
And
sucks.
like abroad it started late for me too because of when New Zealand started. So it was like February 18th, like I flew out to New Zealand, and then I came back at the end of March, and then my semester didn't end until July. So I was like, but it was super fun because I like found this Irish pub in like downtown Auckland that does like open mics once a week.
Okay.
And I was like, hey, could I just like do a 20-minute set at your open mic?
Yeah. 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 And what happened?
And then they were like, yeah, sure. And then I invited like all the abroad students, and then there was like 50 kids in this pub, and we just like I put on this, like it was a super fun show. And
Yeah.
like if it wasn't COVID, I was like planning to try to strike a deal up with the pub to like, because like, you know, all these like college kids are like spending money getting
Yeah.
alcohol, like maybe I could get a cut and we could put on these shows and you could get lots
100%.
of crowds, like. And then there was this like nearby like record studio, like recording studio, and like international like art school thing, and like they had like a scout who like came to the mic, and they were like, oh, you can come record whatever. And then I like literally had to go back home like the next week because of COVID. So
Dude.
COVID's definitely been like, I was like, damn, I wonder, I'd just be performing around New Zealand like for 4 months. But no, COVID said no.
Are you still in
Um,
touch with the recording studio or anything, or do you plan?
yeah,
That'd be a cool opportunity.
yeah, no, like definitely if I like went back, like I still have like their contact, and they were trying to get me in touch with the studio like in like San Francisco Bay Area,
Yeah,
but due to COVID, like all of their offices were shut down. And so like everything was like hyper remote for only for like the existing members. And so it kind of just like closed that door. And so that's something where like when COVID lets up, I'm probably gonna reach out again and be like, hey, like remember me, I'm saying hi again, and see what can happen. So I still have like that connection with the scout, and like we have each other's emails, and like we're like, oh, we'll keep each other, like she'll keep me in touch for opportunities and stuff. But I do feel like that immediate chance was definitely like lost because of COVID. But there's definitely been like other cool opportunities that have come my way. Like I performed yesterday, which was pretty fun. And yeah, but so I'd probably say that's the downside. Hasn't really been like my ability to like work with producers or like record. It's more of the ability to do like in-person sets or like open mics and stuff, which is like always fun.
yeah. No, I feel that. And yeah, so so it seems like you're really passionate about obviously like taking up these opportunities in music. So like I guess like in the future, like what's your plan? Like obviously like you're gonna graduate soon.
Yeah.
For people in your situation like college musicians, like what are you thinking right now when deciding like what your future looks like?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's also like a
Um,
pretty loaded question. So like
no worries. Um, I feel like for me, cause like in terms of my like long-term ambitions, I see myself in like executive management roles in engineering like companies and firms, doing like really like cutting edge work for like improving like city design. Like that's like where I see myself. I would love to be back in the Bay. I have lots of incentives to be in the San Jose, like South Bay area.
yeah.
Um, because I have my organization there, and which we have like, like over like 75 volunteers and like, 10K people like following it and all this stuff. So there's like lots of like momentum there. Plus it's like my home, and like it's the Silicon Valley. So like there's all these tech and engineering jobs there. Anyway, like, I feel like I was kind of lucky that where I call home like has jobs for me. So I don't, and also there's like a lot of music culture in
Yeah.
the Bay Area, like as a whole. So like, and a lot of just like
In the
creative
Bay as
art
well.
culture. Yeah, like because
Oh, okay.
San Jose is the Bay Area.
Okay.
Um, if yeah, I'm not sure if you knew where San Jose was. Yeah. So like, um,
Wait. So it's like okay, San Francisco, um,
yeah,
LA is
which
like here, and then like
yeah,
where's San Jose? Like
I'm like without traffic, a 30-minute drive from SF. With traffic, an hour. So
okay.
we're the South Bay of the Bay Area.
Oh,
So like
gotcha.
how you'd look at, like, you'd say SF, Oakland, San Jose. San Jose is bigger in population than both Oakland and SF, but we're more spread out. So we have less, like, I guess, if you know, like Stanford and like Google and all, like Intel and all those like companies are in the Palo Alto Mountain View, which is smaller like town cities, like right outside of San Jose. So it's kind of like San Jose, and then you have like tech, and then also downtown San Jose has a lot of tech. That's its own conversation too, about like how tech companies come into San Jose and what to do about it. But yeah, is like considered the Bay Area. Some people, like, if someone from SF might argue, really the Bay, I'd be like, no, get out of it. That is a settled argument. But But so I love San Jose, and it's just in a super convenient place because it's like the Bay Area is just the heart of like so much culture, whether that's like creative arts or like music or like engineering, like all the things I want to do are like where I like call home and have ties to.
Yeah.
And so that I find that to be pretty lucky. But I really want to make sure that in my adult life that I have like that space to do music and also to like work on my writing, like work on my trilogy. It's been 8 years,
I
and
took a look at it.
we're on book 2.
Yeah,
uh,
it was interesting. No, it was like definitely like very dystopian, obviously.
yeah.
But I yeah, I'm very interested. If it comes out as a book, I would love to read it. And yeah.
Yeah. Book 1 is written. I'm doing like review right now, so I can definitely send some chapters your way. I'm working
Yeah.
on book 2 right
Yeah.
now. So I'm like starting chapter 2 of book 2.
Got you. Okay.
I finished chapter 1 like this week. So
Yeah.
um but yeah, so I really want to make sure that I have more of that space. I feel like I don't know, I'm sure you feel this way at Duke. Mud's insane. And I feel like outside of Mud, I'll have even more space to um, pursue music. Like, I feel like ideally for music, I'd love to just like have a really strong, like, I guess, like indie following of people who are just like down for my vibe. And I just get to like perform, if it's like, oh, I perform for a few weeks twice a year when I have time off and I just get to go like travel and tour for that, that'd be like really, really lit. I love like creating just like the brand of MaryJessie. Like I do all my cover art and stuff and
I was gonna
like draw
ask.
all the, yeah. So that's like, that was a big thing like summer 2019. I was like, oh, I want to like create the like the brand vibe with it. So then I was like, let me draw all the cover art to all of the songs. And so that's like a big part of like, and I just like, I have all these like music video ideas. I have a music video that like is we're in the editing of the final like sequence of it stage.
Cool. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like like, yeah, so I feel like I have like a whole world of like the vibe of MaryJessie, and I just like want the space and the time post graduation to be able to pursue that as like um a very strong hobby. Like, like I still will want to be doing like all my engineering things, and also that gives me the space and like the financial support to be doing like music things.
Yeah.
um but like, I definitely want to like be like, okay, I get to spend like 5-10 hours like a week where I can just like be doing music stuff on the weekend, and like after the work day, like definitely like if it's like, oh, I'm working and then I come back and I like go do my running and jump roping, and then after dinner I'm just like hanging out in my little studio that I set up
Yeah.
wherever I'm living. Like that's the vibe, like
Yeah.
just kind of on a cloud in many more words than one, more ways than one. I think you get what I'm trying to say. I was trying to make an innuendo there, just vibing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of where I see myself. All the specifics of that, like I'm applying to grad schools, I'm applying to different jobs. Like I'm at an engineering internship right now that like could be a job, but I might, so I'm like, I'm pretty like just casting the net and being like, let's see where I end up. But I definitely like I have to have a space where I can do that.
Yeah. One thing I want to ask about, you mentioned earlier, was like you talked about how like the Bay Area as like a music hub as well. Like something when I've talked to like other artists about, like, their futures, they mentioned like, I'm packing up moving to LA, right? And
Yeah.
I guess like what differences do you feel between like LA and Bay Area, or like I guess like what would you say to like artists that have that mentality?
Yeah, of artists that have the mentality of like going to LA.
Straight to LA, yeah.
Yeah. Um, I feel like maybe this is just me like in the bubble of pursuing, like maybe it's me like in this bubble of pursuing music as something that like I do for fun, where it's like I'm not like I like need to be making money with my music, like because I'm making money elsewhere. um that like for me, I'm like, oh, there's so much like cool talent that comes out of the Bay Area, and like cool collectives. Like in the beginning of quarantine, I spent a lot of time like finding all the like Bay Area DJs, which even like got me plugged into some organizing spaces too, which is kind of cool. But like just finding all the different like music groups and like things going on, and I was like, wow, like there's so much like subculture here, and there's so many places that you can like perform, and like different like vibes and like different venues where like people come together. And like so like for me, like essentially it's like me being like, oh, like any big artist performs and will perform in the Bay. And they'll have a stop in the Bay. And any like smaller artists will also have a stop. Like the Catalyst Club in Santa Cruz is like a great example, where like up and coming artists, like right before they blow up, tend to they'll perform at the Catalyst, and then they'll be like pretty big, and you'll be like, ooh, okay. Or like our San Jose Jazz Festival, which is in downtown, which is like a few blocks from where my apartment is, where my family's apartment is.
Yeah.
Like yeah, like if you know Masengo, who I love a lot.
I feel like I've heard of the artist. I just do not.
Yeah, he performed in 2016, and he like wasn't super big yet. And I basically got my own like free show with Missing. Like I got to meet him after and like chill out, and like
Yeah.
there's all these like jazz spots in like San Jose, and same with like Oakland, and same with like SF and Berkeley. There'll be like just lots of like cool soul places with like lots of history to like learn about. And I feel like I am like just scratching the surface of San Jose, let alone like the greater Bay Area. And so like for me, when I'm like, oh, if I want to have the space to do music, like there's all of that space is here, and like there's all these cool places to perform, and like places where I can like find connections and like build community and like build a base here.
Yeah.
Then like that's where I'm like, oh, that's what makes me say the Bay. But if if you can tell, like it's not like, oh, like where can I go to like make it big, or like where can I go to like make this my like one and only. Like I feel like if that was my mindset, that I might be thinking like, yeah, like stay in LA, like that's where I gotta go. But I feel like my mindset's more on like building that just sort of like that home network, where it's like, you show up in a spot and like the people know you there, and they're like, yeah, oh, Mary, like our like who lives like right there, like go team. And having that home base kind of like is a vibe that I'm passionate about. And so yeah, I hope I like answered the question.
No,
Like
you did.
definitely like more power to anybody who's like LA, like I totally get it.
Yeah.
And like I have friends who are like that. But I, for my direction, I feel like the Bay has that space.
No, that makes complete sense. Yeah. Something else I wanted to bring up was like what like the messages of your music. Let me
Yeah.
I wrote something down. Let me just like check it out. Yeah, for Gotta Go. Um
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
like because it's something I feel too. It's like general anxiety, students have feeling, yeah, just like so many things are happening like on a daily basis. You don't know in like I guess like the time to tackle what to do, you do end up doing nothing because you're so worried about
Yeah.
everything. Um
Yeah.
I know like I know that's not your only like theme of like music, but I guess like what can you talk about like what goes into like the emotions that
Yeah.
go into your music?
Yeah. Like, so I guess this is like kind of interesting. Like how I write lyrics, is I usually just like, it usually takes me like anywhere from like 15 to 45 minutes to like write a song.
That's it.
Um, Yeah.
That's
Yeah, that's like,
good.
it's pretty, I didn't, I like, I'm pretty, like, I think Gotta Go, like, like a fun fact, the producer for Gotta Go, um, is Samir. Like, several producers on the album are part of the music and arts committee for San Jose Strong.
Okay.
And so like, the producer for Gotta Go, I met him because he's friends with the team lead for the music and arts committee, and helped us do a lot of audio work for the San Jose Fan Fest that we hosted in July, which was this really fun, like all day live stream of showcasing like Black talent and musicians in the South Bay. And like, we also had like an art auction for like art, like Black artists in like San Jose South Bay
Yeah.
area, and like, which was really, really fun. And then after, he was like, yo, Mary, we should collab. And I was like, I'm making this album, like, you want to be on it? Like, hit me up with the beats. And then that's how
Yeah.
Gotta Go happened.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and but yeah, so that's obviously not your question, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Charlie. He's great. Um, but but yeah, the like, I kind of just like write the lyrics, and I like have a vibe. Like, if I pinpoint point like the emotion that I'm feeling, then I can just kind of I just write it, and I like honestly can't really say how I'm feeling when I'm writing it. But then after, I'm like, oh wow, this like has a lot of meaning there. Like, same for my writing. Like, I like I'll come to like a realization about like, so an aspect of my worldview, or like something that I like value, and then I'll be like, oh wow, like I wrote that in my book 2 years ago. Like, I like wrote like, that's like
Yeah.
a good, I think a good example of that from my book is like the protagonist and the anti-villain. Like, he's not the villain, but like he's kind of like a foil. They're foils for each other. Um, I like realized that their like origin stories are like really similar, except like the key distinction is that our protagonist like chooses to trust people at like key junctures in the book, that she ends up building a really strong network that she needs in book 3, which has not been written at all. But and meanwhile, the anti-villain like really doesn't trust people, and like doesn't open up, and you like see how that influences their like respective arcs, even
Yeah.
though they've had the same like origin experiences. And I was like, wow, like I knew I like thought trust was good, but I didn't realize it was like, this was a theme. And so I feel like very similarly about how I write my music. Like, I guess like an example in like Gotta Go, like that kind of like ties into this like feeling of like survival mode, which is like, like if you're being chased, like let's say like you're being chased by wolves, and then like in the process of being chased by wolves and like trying to fight the wolves and like get out of this forest, you're like, you like break your arm, like you're scratched up, like you're tired, but like you don't really care about that. You're like,
Yeah.
I gotta get away from the wolves. And then you like escape the forest, and you're like, okay, cool. And then you're like, wow, like my arm's broken. That's not good. But I feel like, when you look at it like that, you're like, okay, obviously I need to go like get my arm checked out and like fix my arm. But I feel like a lot of times, like when people experience like, anything from just like basic stress to like serious trauma, like you can be like, oh, my arm's broken. And you feel like because you pointed it out, that therefore it is resolved. Like, just because you acknowledge that like something is bad, or that you've been harmed by a situation, doesn't mean that like you've healed from the harm. And so like, I felt like what like Gotta Go was just like this energy of like, you're running from the wolves. Like, you don't even, you're not even really like thinking about it. And like, just what comes to mind when you're just running, like what's going on there, and like what's the feeling. And then then the lyrics came, and then I was like, oh, okay, cool, like this adds up. So like, I pick like a vibe, and then once you lock into the vibe, like in Trance, the opening song, like my vibe is like, it's 2 a.m. and I am skateboarding down a hill with my friends. Or actually, that's actually not correct. That's not the right vibe. I'm gonna retract that. The real vibe was, I'm on 13th Street in downtown San Jose, and I'm blazed. and just on a walk, and like, what am I feeling on this walk, which also could be me skateboarding, so that kind of, they kind of go together. um but yeah, so like that was like, once I like lock onto like a scenery, like a vibe, whether that's like imaginary running from wolves or like very real life me walking down the street I walk a lot, then like just the lyrics kind of flow from there, and then I can like look back at the lyrics and be like, okay, these are the deeper feelings I have in this moment. The lyrics just like help me get there. It's like the stepping stone from feeling to words that I can tell people. But yeah,
Wait,
I hope that answered your question.
can you just repeat the last part? You said what's the stepping stone between the feeling
Yeah.
and the words? Like
So
the
like, you have a feeling, and then there like you're in a moment, right? Like let's say you're just like looking outside and you're like, wow, and you just like look outside, you're with some friends, like there's all these emotions that accompany this moment.
yeah,
And then there's like your ability to like explain how you felt during that moment, like getting there, like writing the song, and like having a song that like articulates the moment with like lyrics and like production, and melody. Like that's the stepping stone for me to be able to explain how I felt in
gotcha,
that moment. And
gotcha,
then I annotate my lyrics, and that's me explaining it. But it took me writing the song to get to the annotation.
gotcha, 100%. Also, I think what you mentioned about like acknowledging is not it's like the solution. That's like I when you said it, that was something I think like is so true, but like I never like explicitly thought like myself. Yeah, and that's yeah. Just wanted to mention that. Yeah,
It took me a minute to like realize myself. So whenever I
yeah,
realize something, I'm like, it's got to go in a song. Like,
yeah. Yeah, I think like we can kind of wrap this up, but one last thing I
yeah,
wanted to ask was what advice do you have for like um college or even like young adult like musicians that are like
yeah,
that that are exploring their passions. I mean, it's not easy to make music. I mean, I wouldn't know, but just talking to people, I understand like what the experience, like the final product is so much work that goes into it. It's not, yeah.
yeah.
But like, regardless, what advice do you have for people who are interested in not even music, but like any form of artistic expression? Like, yeah,
Yeah. Um, I feel like there's like several, like I feel like there's several like steps to go. Obviously, like anybody can take their own steps. They might have very different steps from me, but I feel like um my sort of step process was like, first like really like finding, like if there's like a creative realm that you're passionate about, like finding the way for you to participate in it is like kind of step number one, right? Like I love music. I am like known for having my headphones. Like right now, these AirPods were like a gift. But normally I have my overhead headphones on, and like when
yeah,
I was like wearing these AirPods, like people were like, something's different, like on Zoom, like my friends were like, something's like off, and I was
yeah,
like, oh yeah, I don't have headphones on right
yeah, yeah,
now. Because I just like, yeah, like all the time. And like, I really enjoyed like playing the viola in like classical orchestras, and like, I like love making like mixes and like DJing mixes and stuff. But like when you kind of like find something where you can like escape, like I feel like this like applies to like any extracurricular, or like even like just like any passion, whether like that could be your job. It'd be great if that's your job. But when you like find something that you can just like, you just click, like you're not, for me, I feel like I'm always thinking. And if there's like, when I find something where I'm not thinking about other things, but I'm just like actually in the moment and like vibing out, like that's like a really like powerful thing. And I feel that way about being able to like sing, and like also things that are kind of like intuitive, um like songwriting, it's very similar to like creative writing. Like I can write songs and like just write in general pretty quickly, and it's something that comes to me just like, I don't like, it's hard to explain like how it comes to you, but it just like is this thing that you have to do, even if it wasn't, you know, um, like it's your way of being able to like understand like the world around you. Like I first started writing when I had like moved to Virginia when I was like 7. I lived on the East Coast for a minute. That's a side note about me. And it was like 6 years. But born in Oakland though, you know, so always rep the Bay. But I like had moved to this new neighborhood. I started telling my mom that there's like these mermaids that were fighting. She's like, sit down for 30 minutes a day and write it down. And that was like my first like story. And like, you know, looking back, you know, the protagonist made friends despite being kind of like being the new person in this group, because like she was really kind, and that's like how everything worked out in the end. And I was like, oh, like, see, like that's me like trying to like understand how I'm going to move in this new environment and doing it through writing. And that like was like the natural way that me as like a young kid could like talk about the world, was
Yeah.
through fantasy. And so like even though like that's something that of course I still fantasy write as we've been talking, but I consider like songwriting similar to fantasy. You know, you're going somewhere else, you're transporting someone with your music. And so that's just always been this natural way for me to understand the world. So like, you know, whatever the extracurricular or passion is, whether that's drawing or, you know, making like fashion or like doing like any kind of cool thing, where that like allows you to feel like closer to your reality, and to like understand things and piece it together. Like that's kind of step number one, like finding out what that is. And then, you know, making the decision if you want it to be something that you share versus something that you like kind of keep to yourself. Like I know people who are really good, like incredible artists, musicians, you know, you name it, and they don't necessarily like want it to be something that's commercialized, or like want it to be something that like they have to like, you know, make other people like and enjoy. And
Yeah.
also, you know, you can have hobbies and passions that you like aren't like gifted at and like don't go anywhere. Like I think we should also do that.
Yeah.
But like down this road of like something that you want to consider both for fun but also like on a more serious level, if you want it to be something that you share, I feel like creating your brand, which sounds like really you know, commercialized, but like, you know, kind of like really knowing yourself and being able to channel yourself into your work. Like I feel like that does wonders. Like I don't like people, I don't know, people will be like, oh, you know, like that this sounds like a Mary song, or like this sounds like something, like this sounds like a Mary vibe. Like I feel like I've kind of coined my own vibe in a sense. And
Yeah.
that's like a pretty big step. And then building your network, which can always be done more. And so obviously that depends on your end goal. You know, my whole thing is like, you know, I want to have like my just strong cohort of people who are down so that I can put on cool sets where people enter my world and we just vibe out. And I, depending on how many resources I get, that can be extend to music videos or merch or whatever I like would be down. But I feel like, you know, finding your passion, finding your like your vibe, your brand, your voice, like whatever that is, and then like finding your people, like your niche and like your audience and your network, both for like people who want to listen, and watch and support, and people who can contribute to the team. Those are kind of like the building blocks. And from there it's just like, okay, well, what do you want to do with it? You know, it might be you go to LA and you're like, I got to go there to do it full time, or it's like, nah, I just want to like chill out. You know, however you want to do it. I feel like once you have those three, it's pretty much just a matter of like how you choose to move. But like those three are pretty key. I was pretty long-winded, but
No,
I
it
feel
was
like I
good.
answered
I think it was necessary. I haven't gone as detailed as a response as I have with you, and that was really good. Thank you.
Yeah, no, awesome. Thank you for having me. It was so fun to talk about it. I was like, man, I'm stressed about moving in, and now I'm like, love music. all
Yeah,
the
yeah,
vibes. So it's rejuvenating for me.
yeah. No, yeah. Once again, I already thank you, but I'm gonna thank you again. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Hopefully, yeah, we stay in contact and stuff, and I'll see you around.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Stay safe. Thank you
Yeah,
so
you too. Yeah,
much
you too.
for
Yeah,
calling today.
for
I know
sure.
that's how I exit all calls. I'm like, stay safe, be healthy,
Yeah.
avoid people, hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. Have a good one.